Evening, everyone, or afternoon if you're in California, which Rich is at the moment. I'm delighted to welcome Rich German to WHIS Talks. And today's discussion is all about SDG 14, Life Underwater. Rich is an entrepreneur, business coach, and an all-around good guy. He does amazing work supporting the oceans. He's the founder of Project Doe, and he's just got in off the paddleboard. Rich, delighted to welcome. Please tell the audience who you are, what you do, and then we'll fire some questions across to you. And if anyone's watching this and has a question, please do pop it into the chat box, and we'll put it to Rich.
Awesome.
So over to you, Rich.
Thanks, man. So honored to be here. I don't know how long we've known each other, but long enough to not only be like brothers in terms of our passion to protect the ocean and the planet in general, but also friends. So it's an honor to be here with you today, Gareth. Oh gosh. So yeah, I've been an entrepreneur, and in my business life, I'm a business coach, and I've done that for over 20 years. In my personal life, I live in Laguna Beach, California, right on the beach. And for the past 10 years, I've paddleboarded pretty much every single day with dolphins and whales, including this morning. And I take photos and I shoot videos of them. And it started as a total hobby. I just love being on the ocean. Paddleboarding started as my meditation. It was exercise. It was a way to commune with nature. And then when the dolphins and whales showed up in my life, the creative in me started taking photos. Then I got a little fancier and put a GoPro on my hat, started shooting video, and I would share all these online, mainly on Facebook. And people seemed to really resonate, with the photos. They loved it. And for a long time, people would always say, "Oh, you should make a book. You should make a book." And I always said no. And the reason I said no was it's like that ocean, it's my church. It's my sanctuary. It's where I go to get away. Like I never bring my phone out there. It's my way of unplugging and getting away from everything. And if I made a book, all of a sudden, I'm selling it and now it becomes a business. And I just didn't want to commingle those two worlds. And then everything changed about 5 years ago. It was actually January 7th, 2015. I was paddling right offshore here, and I looked way out on the horizon, and I saw 8 boats just sitting there. And I had heard the day before that there was a pod of orcas seen in Long Beach, California, which is about 30 miles north of where I'm sitting right now. And at sunset, they were heading south in this direction. And up to that point, I had paddled with pretty much every species of dolphin and whale you can imagine. Whales, including gray whales, which migrate through here every year. Blue whales, which are the largest animal on the planet. I probably had about 75 encounters with blue whales from my board right here off Laguna Beach. They're 100 feet long. Humpback whales, minke whales, you name it. But the one species that I'd never encountered was orcas. And I would always literally have dreams in my sleep. I would have dreams of being with orcas. And as I paddled out that day and I saw those boats sitting there, I was like, maybe that's the orcas. And I took a shot. I paddled out 2 miles to get out there. And sure enough, it was a pod of 4 orcas. And I just shot this pretty pristine video of these orcas coming right at me. They were literally coming right under my board. It was amazing. And when I got home, I looked at the video and I was like, oh my God, it was amazing. And it was such an intimate moment that I wasn't going to share it. I wasn't going to just keep it to myself. And I just showed the video to a couple of my friends, and they were basically like, dude, this is way too cool. Like, you have to share this. And so what I did was I came on to Facebook and I shared the video on my personal page. And what I did also was I didn't want to, I had a feeling the video would get a lot of attention, and I didn't want to be known as crazy paddleboarder risking his life with these killer whales. So what I did is I went down to the beach and I shot a 90-second opening, just me looking at the camera, talking about the encounter, talking about how I wasn't afraid because there's never been a human being harmed by orcas in the wild. I gave a little jab to SeaWorld saying how the only, times humans have been injured by orcas is in captivity. So I gave that little jab, and I basically said, here's a chance to see orcas as they're meant to be seen out in the wild. And then I cut in the video. It was like 2 minutes of me with the whales. I put it on my Facebook page, and within 3 hours, the video was shared like 700 times. Wow. And I was like, okay, there's something here. So I went online and I went onto the 3 major TV network websites in Los Angeles, NBC, CBS, and ABC. And all 3 ran the story live that night on the news. The next morning, all 3 called me and said, every single affiliate nationwide wants to run your story. Can they? To which I said, okay. And then it just went nuts. I mean, it went not only all over this country, but all over Europe, where you are, like everywhere in the world. It just went like totally ballistic. And here's the turning point moment, though, was actually the next day. I was sitting right here at this desk, and in one morning, I was contacted by PETA, Save the Whales, Blackfish, Mission Blue, which is Sylvia Earle's organization, the Cove, all these organizations, all the organizations that I would have wanted to connect with, all contacted me, and they said, hey, can we run your story? And I'll never forget, I sat at this desk and I bawled my eyes out. And that was like, everything in my being right there was like, okay, like that was the moment that this hobby of mine became a true passion to do whatever I could for the rest of my life to protect the ocean and the life that calls it home. And that led, in that moment, I decided, okay, I'm going to make the book, which I think you have. I know you have a copy of it because I sent one to your family. Oh, and he has it right there.
I have it right here. It's amazing. So I've been looking through it and I'm very grateful.
Awesome. So I created that book, Blue Laguna, which is just a bunch of photos that I took for my board, including the orcas are in that book, of course. And I also created a nonprofit called Project O. So I'm sure we can get more into what Project O is all about, but there's the short version of how I got to where I'm at this moment.
Yeah, well, that was a bit of background, and that's the next question. Actually, was going to be about Project O. Really want to get an understanding of, and I think you've given a bit of background about why Project O, and then if you could also tell us a little bit about Blue Cities.
Sure. So I think I'll preface anything I say by saying that I'm not an expert. I'm not a marine biologist. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a guy who loves the ocean, somehow created a pretty unique connection with the dolphins and whales. I was out with the dolphins this morning and just has this, passion to want to do something. So I said, I'm going to start a nonprofit. And to be honest with you, Garrett, the first 18 months, I had no idea what the heck it was. I was like, I know I'm supposed to do something, but I don't know what it was. I don't know what it's supposed to be. And it's actually kind of a cool story. One day I wrote down, I said, well, what if we created a certification program? What if we certified cities all around the world for following best practices when it came to protecting the ocean and waterways? Like, that would be pretty cool. And I just wrote that down, and then I kind of let it go. And then I kid you not, a few months later, and in my mind, I said, I'm going to call it, I said, what if we call it Blue Cities? So, there's this whole green movement. Well, let's have a blue movement. So it'll be Blue Laguna, Blue San Diego, Blue Los Angeles. We'll start here in California and then, let it spread all over the world. Like, that seems like a pretty good idea. I wrote it down, put it away. A few months later, I get a phone call from a friend of mine whose family, I won't mention the name of this family, but they're extremely entrenched in all things protecting the ocean, protecting the planet, protecting the environment. And she said, Rich, she goes, I know you've been looking for something to do with your organization. She says, I have an idea. She goes, why don't you come over to my office? And I said, I'll be right there. So I go over there, and I kid you not, she says, what if we create a certification program where we certify cities for following best practices when it comes to protect? It was almost like verbatim. It was the exact same idea. And I said to her, I'm like, you've got to be kidding. I said, I swear to God, I wrote that exact idea down a few months ago. And it was like, it was just instant synchronicity. And we ran with it. And that led to, this was about 2 years ago. What we did from then, we decided, okay, we have to do this. This is a good idea. And then we went and we did some outreach. So the first thing we did was we connected with a bunch of other nonprofits like the Oceanas and the Surf Riders of the world and said, hey, we all met together, had a 2-day workshop where it was basically like, what do you think of this idea? Does this idea have merit? And all of them said yes. And then what we started to do was create a criteria. Well, what would that look like? And it was an extremely complicated process, as you know, to figure out, what could we do that a city could actually do it. It can't be so overwhelming that a city looks at it and they're like, we don't have time and the energy to even think about this. So it had to be something that was doable, and more important, it had to be something that would actually make an impact, right? We didn't want to just create a rubber stamp certification program. Like, it has to be something that will make a difference. And the idea is that we get one city to do it, then another. And it's basically then any city can join this network. And the whole idea is, let's say a city says, we want to ban all single-use plastics. That would be a good thing to do, but we don't know how to do it. Then we say, hey, well, this city over here, they did it. Here's the exact language they use. Here, follow these steps, do A, B, C, D, E, and then you can have that in place. So we want to speed up the process for any other cities that want to jump on board. And really, at the end of the day, it's about empowering cities to become a part of the solution, right? So now we have a whole bunch of nonprofit partners. And then the next thing we did was at a workshop with a bunch of cities. So it was one thing for all of us to say, this would be great when it comes to things like waste and water and stewardship of the ocean and climate change and all these things. Like, we felt these would all be great. And then the rubber meets the road when we get the cities involved, where the cities can say, that sounds like a great idea, but it's never going to happen. Or, you're asking us to do what? It's never going to happen. We don't have the money. We don't have the resources, whatever. So then we had to bring cities involved. And this was, like I said, an 18-month process of working with the nonprofit partners and the cities to come up with a criteria that, like I said, is implementable for a city and also will make a serious impact. And then final thing I'll share on Blue Cities, our initial plan was to launch it in March. We had pilot cities ready to go. And as you may recall, the world kind of stopped spinning in March and everything got, stopped. Cities were obviously a little preoccupied. And so we had to push it back. But in June, just a couple months ago, we launched the pilot program with a couple cities here on the coast of California. We're getting feedback from them, and then we'll be adding more cities in the next few months. We're improving the criteria and all of our systems. And it's going to take some time, but the plan is to start right here along the coast of California with a lot of cities that are already doing a lot of the right things. And then we will expand inland. And the plan, like I said, is to go global with this thing. So it's a big lift and a major project. And it's something you and I have obviously, it's not the first time you're hearing about Blue City, but it's something I know you really believe in from your chair also.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, I'm really excited as well, because I think last year I was at the SDG Champions event in Espoo, and there was a company called Varsilla was there. They actually make diesel engines, and they were all, they're a Finnish company. They're huge, and they're into energy and waste in it. And it was only, they put up this fantastic video. I'll share it later. I'll send it to you. And it was all about the ocean, an oceanic wave of, and I said to myself, really the ocean is untapped. It's an untapped resource, and that's why I'm really excited, and I'm delighted to be kind of working with yourself and beginning to kind of bounce ideas, brainstorm together. Let's just talk about sustainable development goals, but also you talked about it there, single-use plastic, and you were just out on your paddleboard, and I was going to ask you, what's the situation in the ocean in relation to plastic and waste? And because we see a lot of things I pick up the paper, you pick up, you get feeds across the line, and you see these huge huge, should we say, almost lagoons of plastic waste in the ocean. It's shocking. Like, I think every minute, you're seeing dump trucks going into the ocean.
Yep.
Can you give us an insight and kind of articulate a little bit what it's like, what it does, and also, it must be detrimental to the animals, to the mammals, to the fish, which of course affects our supply chain. Then we could talk a little bit about the nutritional side of it, because I mean, the microplastics as well that are absorbed in the fish, of course, then are absorbed in our body, which then causes cancers. So these are the sort of topics we need to discuss.
Yeah, so I'll touch on that real quick, and then answer your question of like locally what we see in terms of plastics and waste and whatnot. I think you're hitting a key point. When we look at the ocean as a whole, it's hard for people to relate to this massive body of water and why should we care? But you just hit on a point that I think is so vital, that without a healthy ocean, like we as human beings, our survival is in jeopardy. Like we are literally eating plastic. Like you just said, the plastic is now in the fish. Mm-hmm. Well, we eat the fish. We are eating plastic. I saw a stat recently, don't quote me, but it's like we eat like a credit card worth of fish of plastic every like month or something like that. It's like, it's pretty crazy. So like, if you have children and you eat fish, you are literally feeding your children plastic. And to your point, it's not good for your health. So I think where it was hard for people to relate to this big, massive ocean, now with what we're talking about and the pandemic, for sure, it's like it has become a personal health issue, right? Not only can I mean, here's the way I look at it, not to be overly... I made the commitment that when I started the work that I'm doing, that I will always do my best to come from a place of love versus fear. If you ever watch my videos, which I know you do, I'm just showing the beauty and the magic that I see out there, the dolphins and the whales. And my hope is that people will, through awareness, fall so in love with these animals that they will do whatever needs to be done to protect them. So I never try to like ever come from a place of scaring people. There's enough of that out there, right?
Agreed.
We've all seen Inconvenient Truth and Before the Flood and all these great documentaries, which are important, but you watch them and they kind of scare the crap out of you, to be honest with you. And so my point was, I kind of feel like we're at a crossroads and that we're going to go one of two ways. Either human beings won't figure out how to live in harmony with the planet, and the planet will kind of spit us off, which is happening now we're getting a little tiny taste of that with this virus.
Yeah.
This is like nothing to what potentially can happen. So that's the little bit of fear that I'm just pointing out as a potential reality. And then the other side, the positive, is we will learn to live in balance, in harmony with the planet, and figure out a way that we can sustain our lives, 8 billion of us on this planet, because the reality is the planet was probably better off before we got here. So we got to figure it out, and my hope is that we will.
I'm in a complete agreement. I don't believe in fear or scaring people at all. Like, I always look to solutions. I definitely believe in it, but there is facts as well, so you have to be factual about what's happening here. And it's almost like, the COVID situation, where we have the facts presented with us, but then we still take the wrong course of action, which causes huge disruption. So when you talk about the ocean situation and the plastics and the microplastics and the fish nets, I mean, these are all things that I've only become aware of. And I do realize, I mean, I was at a European conference last year, which is all around, One Health, which is to do with, the environment and the health and the knock-on effect. And I seen for example, we were talking about pharmaceuticals, for example, contraceptive pills, which are flushed down the toilet, okay, which then end up in your water chain, your supply chain, which then changes the fish's brains and then have knock-on effects in terms of our mental health and well-being. These are huge repercussions, and the microplastics are just another thing. So, but I don't think we should just sugarcoat it and say nothing about it. I think we have to be factual and say this is what is actually happening. And one of the islands in Europe here, I think just up very north of Scotland, is, the Faroe Islands, for example, and they've had for many, many years very clean waters per se, and now they're actually reporting that they're having microplastics in their fish, and so that's a bit of an alarm bell for me. I watched a program on it, but I mean, taking it back, the Blue Cities, I think, is a fantastic initiative. And the criteria that you talked about, is that available online? Can people get that online?
Not yet. And let me just speak to what we're just in the pilot version of it now. Soon it will be in due time. I think you're bringing up a great point. Like, we need to be factual with people and be honest with them, because the reality is we don't have the luxury of time anymore. Like, things need to change. And that's why something like Blue City, I feel, is so powerful, and to have someone like you who understands what's going on in the world to really advocate and endorse what we're doing is powerful, because that I don't want to just scare people is my point. I want to empower them and say, look, hey, here's the reality. Like, things are not great, but here's what you can do. Like, we believe it's two things. We believe in the power of one.
Yeah.
Right. We want to show people, here are things that you can do. Here's behavioral changes you can make that will make a difference. And then the other thing is, and here's what's being done. We really want to create a platform, or we are a platform to highlight and show what our nonprofit partners and other organizations and entrepreneurs and people are doing out there. So we want to give people hope. There's no value in just scaring the crap out of people. It's like, hey, here's what you can do. Here's what's being done. Let's all come together. Let's work together. Let's support each other. And, let's take this thing in the right direction.
Yeah, it's solution focused, but I think, it's not scaring
100%.
people. It's being realistic. It's being factual. The most important thing is to be factual, but to be honest and open and transparent as well, because, there is business opportunities there as well, from the entrepreneur's point of view. We need to come up with new business models around sustainability. And, this is very much at the forefront of what we're trying to do in terms of, like, your platform. We all need to come together. We need to figure out ways in which we can work together. We can collaborate in a healthy competition way, in a way that changes things, positively. I mean, because ultimately, as you say, if we don't do something, our children not going to have much of a future. Their children are certainly not going to have much of a future, because, from our perspective, I'm in my, early 40s, but, we've had good times, we've had good life or whatever, but at the same time,
it's not over yet, man. We're young.
we are young. We've got a lot, but that's where
we had a good run.
Yeah, but that's the responsibility we have to take on our shoulders. We have got to say, look, man, this has to change. Like, 100%. Otherwise, I mean, you talk about one of the things, big worry, is the rising sea waters, the displacement of people, which then causes mass migration, which then leads to conflict. These are huge issues. Most people are sitting at home having a cup of tea, reading the paper. They're not really aware of these situations, until it hits them bang in the face. And then all of a sudden we're in conflict and we're like, what? How did that happen? But that happens years.
That's my point when I was saying about it. How do we, it's hard to grasp this massive big ocean. But like with the pandemic, when all of a sudden it becomes a personal health issue, like, oh my God, if things don't change, I might die. My children might be sick. I think that's what kind of snaps people into action. And so hopefully that's the, a silver lining that could come out of this whole thing.
And the ocean as well. You might know a bit more about this, and even, like, the ocean is full of, therapeutic resources, which we're only beginning to tap into. You probably know, I think is it the blue turtle or one of the, that's used for pharmaceutical manufacturing, the special plasma, the blood that's derived from a particular turtle that they use. Are you aware of that? But
I don't know about the blue turtle. No.
Yeah. There's anyway, most pharmaceuticals derive from a special plasma. It's a special blood that's excreted from a crab. Actually, sorry, it's a crab. And they hold. If you check it out online, you'll see it's massive. They've been doing it for years. But there is, in the ocean, a resource there that is untapped. We're only beginning to kind of explore the ocean per se. I mean, you're out there every day, which, you've got the love for the ocean, but it is a big opportunity. Whereas, and again, it's like I look at certain areas, Africa being one, and the ocean as well, where there's rich resources there that can be sustainable. We just need to know, how do we harness it? Maybe from your perspective, can you give us an insight into what you see the next 12, 24 months for Blue Cities and Project O? Where do you see the impetus going?
Yeah. Plus, I didn't get to answer your question about locally what I'm seeing from a trash standpoint. So over the next 12, 24 months so Project O, Blue City is the major project of Project O. We're also creating another brand under Project O called Our Epic Ocean, which is going to be a podcast that I host. And it's really, like I mentioned before, a platform to feature other people and organizations that are in the trenches doing the work, to really celebrate the work that they're doing. And like I said, to empower our viewers to be a part of the solution also. So over the next couple of years with Blue City, like I said, we're going to start adding more cities into the pilot program. Then we'll have a formal launch of it. And that one's all about scalability, how we can really make a powerful certification program that we can scale globally. And to do that, we're going to need a lot of help. We're going to need a lot of people that become ambassadors for Blue City, basically become liaisons between us and all the cities that we work with. And like I said, we're collecting blueprints and resources from cities that have already implemented a lot of things. We just want to, like a lot of the cities in Southern California have been doing a lot of the right things, ocean-friendly things for a long time. But we want to take this into the Midwest, in the middle of the country. Watch everything that people do inland in their waterways. Everything leads to the ocean, right? Everything's connected. And where does everybody want to go to vacation? If they live in the Midwest or wherever, where's everybody's dream vacation? We all want to come to the ocean. We want to come to the beach. So everybody loves the ocean. That's the good thing. So we want to be able to speed up the process when cities that are not doing a lot of the right things, because they just don't know how, we're going to give them, here's how to do it. Here's how to do what took this city 10 years. You're going to be able to do it in 10 months or whatnot. So the hope is over time, we'll have hundreds and then thousands and thousands of Blue Cities all around the world.
Great. And that's the ambition. It's got to be that way. And the other side of it is you'll learn from the other cities, So anyone who's watching this on record or replay or on different channels at the moment, check out Project O. It's www.projecto.org. So you can find out more. Tell us a little bit about the plastics locally, then. Give us a bit of an insight into what it's like.
So Laguna Beach is a bit of a bubble. And the book that you're holding right there is really a celebration of the fact that in 2012, January 1st, Laguna Beach deemed a 6-mile stretch of coastline, which is pretty much most of Laguna Beach, literally, including where I am right now, to be a no-take zone. So California, the coast of California is about 1,500 miles. And about, I think it's last I saw, 14.9%, called 15% of the coast is marine protected. And only 9 to 10% of the entire coast of California is a no-take zone. No-take means you cannot fish. So Laguna Beach made this decision 2012 that 6 miles across, and then it's not a straight line, but about 2 to 3 miles out, you can't fish. And this sounds kind of crazy, but when I first started paddling in 2010, when I would go out there and I looked down, I wouldn't see a lot of fish because anybody could just fish, and there wasn't not a lot of fish out there.
We might have lost the signals.
Oh,
we're back. We're back.
Oh, good. What did you not hear?
Well, you just said you'd look down in 2010, I think it was.
Okay.
You said.
Yeah. When I first started paddling, there was hardly any fish out there. It was rare to see fish at all. But then when they put the no-take zone in 2012, I kid you not, within about 6 months, I would paddle out, I would look down, and there was fish everywhere. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way that just 6 months of leaving the ocean alone the life could come back that quick. And then I went out to some fishermen, commercial fishermen. I'm like, could this be? And they're like, absolutely. And it blew me away. Now, and this was 8 years ago. Now, when I go out there, you have little fish and big fish and little sharks and dolphins and whales. I mean, I always call this the world's greatest aquarium right here. And so to me, it's a testament to what happens when we just leave the ocean alone. Like I said before in my little scare piece, if we don't figure this out, like one of the things that could happen is the planet is going to spit us off.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is the planet was better off before we got here. As you know, we're in the midst of the 6th great extinction ever on this planet, and it's the very first one that's human caused. So what does that tell you? The planet doesn't need us. It's going to be fine without us. Let's get the better alternative, which is learning to live in harmony. So point is, Laguna's done a lot to protect the coastline. And as a result, it's pretty darn clean and clear water out there. What happens is when we're basically desert climate. There's a reason Laguna Beach is one of the most beautiful places in the world, because it's a stunningly beautiful coast, and the desert is just right inland a little bit. So we have desert climate meets the ocean. Doesn't get much better. So it's perfect. It's the opposite of where you live.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Although today was pretty good.
You had a good day today. No, but it was we have perfect weather almost all year. It hardly ever rains. But when it does rain, we definitely get a little runoff from the hills and the homes. And that's the main time we'll see garbage in the ocean, is after a rain. But besides that, it's pretty darn pristine here. And that's why I said I answered the question starting saying we're kind of in a bubble here. And when I decided, okay, these orcas showing up in my life, bringing this full circle, that was my sign. Like, hey, dude, you're supposed to do something here. Go do it. And honestly, Gareth, I have no idea if I can actually make a true impact. I don't know, but I have to try, right? I got to do what I can.
But I think you are making an impact already. The work that you're doing already is making an impact. A lot of people talk about how do we make impact, but the bottom line is, and the way I've always looked at things, if you just impact one person's life, which you do. I mean, for example, my 2 girls are always talking about your book and the dolphins, and they're, like we that's impact, so that makes a difference. We don't really think about, but we do make a difference,
I appreciate that. I guess it's in my brain. It's never enough. It's never, I appreciate that. I need to just accept that. I do appreciate that. And I think my point is, like, we're in a bubble here. It's a small town it's proactive, progressive environmentally. And when I decided, okay, I'm going to start this nonprofit and try to make a bigger impact, and started looking out into the world of what's going on, it's a little scary when you see, the garbage, the trash situation, and plastics, and rising sea levels, and, acidification, and coral reefs being bleached, and all these things. And so that's where the action comes into place. And I think you brought up a key thing, is that word collaboration. My main business that I've had for many years now is I work with entrepreneurs, and it's all about collaboration. I teach people to come together as entrepreneurs to support each other. And so one of the things that I'm really trying to do is take all of this knowledge that I've gathered over the last 20 years in business, in entrepreneurship, and online marketing and whatnot, and bring it into the nonprofit world, and with the hope that we can collaborate more, bring all these organizations. You have so many great people, so many great organizations that in many cases are working on the same things, but autonomously. Like you said, we got to do this together. We're in a very unique time in human history, especially in this country, and it's probably not that different where you are, where there's so much divisiveness, and we need to move beyond that. We need to come together for the sake of the planet and for the sake of our human health.
Like, I totally agree. Collaboration is key, but also the knowledge that you talked about. And knowledge is is there, solutions are there. It just depends on the will. Is the real will there? It's very much, a lot of people talk about as well, how do you find the time? They'll say to you, how do you find the time to do what you do? How do you make it priority? But you've learned to say no to other things. So you're not out on a Saturday night partying, you're not doing, and it's all about how you prioritize your time management, your own time to make it impact.
I love that you said that, because I made sure I went to bed early last night so I could get up very early this morning, get my ocean time, and not forget. I set my alarm so I didn't forget to be on this call with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly it. You prioritize, you make it a priority. You know, I mean, we've just launched a couple of things the last few days. We had this art for art for SDGs. We've just launched with the World Health Organization. That was like a concept that, literally the concept now came in on Friday, and we turned it around yesterday to get it out there. So, things like that, you prioritize things and you say, well, we need to get this done, and we do it now.
I love the word you use, willingness. To me,
yes.
that's such a key word. Let's say someone wants to improve their physical health. It's not just going to happen. Like, being a healthy human being, it's not a complicated thing to do. Like, we know what foods to eat, what foods not to eat. It's not hard. It's that willingness to do it. And so now we need to take that willingness on a bigger scale, come together as humans to protect not only the ocean and the planet and the animals that we all love so much, but our own selves. And to your point, to leave a world behind for our children and their children that's going to sustain itself.
Well, look, Rich, I think we'll end it on that note, because it's a poignant way to end the discussion. I just want to thank you for your time today, for sharing your experience. Everyone, please check out Project O. Their mission: restore, protect, and sustain the ocean and the life within it. So do check them out. Rich is online as well. You can follow him. And we'll pick this conversation up. We're going to collaborate, no doubt about it, within Blue Cities and Project O, and we can get some projects up and running, particularly around, how does this impact the health, which we talked about, plastics, microplastics. We need to bring that to the fore.
Yeah.
So good. I'm just going to say thanks to everyone who's tuned in this evening, who's watching this on replay. We'll get this posted up across the channels over the next couple of days. And we'll schedule in another chat with Rick in another couple of months, or Rich in another couple of months. And just want to say thanks to everyone who's joined us this evening. So we'll close the discussion. So thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.